Now, let us talk about Chelsea's attack, right? And why I believe things are getting really tricky for Nicolas Jackson. Now, you all know that I like Nicolas Jackson. I have this bias for Nicolas Jackson. So, if you see me making this type of video, you should know that water don't pass Gary. Water don't pass Gary. Now, if you're an African, you understand that adage. You see, for João Pedro, right, at first, I thought that Enzo Maresca wanted to use João Pedro on the left side, right, not as the main striker, because I even made a video about it, that João Pedro was going to be used on that left side. That is what I was thinking, and that's what many people were thinking, that João Pedro will be used like a winger who moves inside, something like a split striker. In fact, I believe that was probably the original plan, right? But then the Club World Cup came, right? João Pedro played as the main striker and he delivered. He was brilliant. He scored. He moved smartly and he linked up well. I mean, he had a very good game, right? That performance, I believe that performance has changed everything. Now we are going for Xavi Simons. I believe that we are definitely going to get Xavi Simons. We are going for Xavi Simons, right? Imagine Chelsea signs Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons plays best from the left-hand side. Just like where I said João Pedro was meant to play. That is where Xavi Simons plays from. That's where he strives from. He's creative, he's sharp, and he's very dangerous in that space. So what happens? That left-hand spot, it will not belong to Xavi Simons, which means João Pedro will move full-time to the striker position. And that is bad news for Nicolas Jackson. Let us be honest. Jackson was the starting striker last season. Even last 2 seasons, Jackson was the #1 striker at Chelsea. But that has changed, because right now it seems João Pedro is the first choice, Liam Delap is the second, and Nicolas Jackson is the third choice. And all this happened in just 2 months. And that is not fair for Jackson, because Jackson still has potentials. He's strong, he's fast, and he still has a lot to learn. But he's still raw. He needs to play games to grow. He needs to play games to improve. He needs to play games to become that top striker that many of us believe he can become. Sitting on the bench as third choice at Chelsea is not going to help his career. Now, you might be asking, why do you think Delap is ahead? First things first, right? When your team is winning, what do you want from a striker that comes? Because we have already established the fact João Pedro is the #1. And don't take my word for it. Enzo Maresca said something like that. He said he sees João Pedro can play across anywhere in that front line. And trust me, João Pedro is the #1 striker. If you are a Chelsea fan and you are trying to fight against that, you are just lying to yourself. João Pedro is the #1 striker. And I believe Delap is the #2. Jackson is the #3. Now, why am I putting Delap ahead of Jackson? Again, when you're as a striker that comes from the bench, right? What is expected of you is that you should know how to hold the ball. You should know how to win fouls, and you should know how to slow the game down. That is what is expected of you. That if you get subbed in when your team is winning, these are the 3 things that are expected of you. Now, if you get subbed in when your team is losing, what is expected of you is to get into the penalty box, have that box presence, fight for crosses, and help your team to go long and direct. In both of these situations, Delap is better than Jackson. Delap is better than Jackson when it comes to holding up the ball. Delap is better than Jackson when it comes to winning fouls. Delap is better than Jackson when it comes to slowing down the game down. Delap is better than Jackson when it comes to getting into the opposition box. Delap is better than Jackson when it comes to fighting for crosses. I mean, Jackson is not even good at heading crosses. He's not even good at heading crosses. Delap is also good when you want to go long and direct. He's better than Jackson. So when you look at all these things, you will see that Delap is better as a substitute, to become that second choice. Now, I am not saying that Delap is a better striker than Jackson. Don't get me wrong. That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is that for the attributes that is required of a substitute or of a striker that comes off for the bench, Delap is better than Jackson. Again, we already established the fact that João Pedro is #1. Because João Pedro is better than Jackson. We're not even overall, João Pedro is better than Jackson. We're not even going to deny that. Nobody's going to argue that. João Pedro is also better than Delap overall. Right? But then, that means the first choice is taking him. Second choice, Delap edges it. So it's a hard situation. I love Nicolas Jackson. I know he can become great. But staying at Chelsea as third choice, it will hurt his future. It will hurt his future. Yes, if João Pedro gets injured or he gets rested, maybe Jackson will now start. Because João Pedro is very similar and Nicolas Jackson, they are very similar. They are very similar. So let's say maybe João Pedro gets injured and he needs to rest. Nicolas Jackson will start. But is that what Nicolas Jackson wants for himself? To be starting only when the first choice striker is not available? Please, it doesn't make sense. Nicolas Jackson, just leave. Just leave, because if you remain at Chelsea, you will not, your career will, it will be stunted. That's how I feel anyways.